questions. It looks like I was having some technical issues. Sorry. It looks like there's some muting going on back and forth, but I am here. Again, my name is Colleen and I'm with Portugal The Place, and we are going to get started here in just a moment. If you haven't joined us before, hello, welcome. Nice to have you here. Please just put up your name and where you're coming in from. It's really great to see everyone from all around. And if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and then we'll get to them as frequently as we can. It's just really exciting and also kind of overwhelming to know this is the last webinar of 2025. It feels like this year has just gone by like crazy. So really excited to be here and to be able to answer those questions. So again, as you have questions, as things come to you, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Also, just so you know, we'll have a recording of this and we'll be getting this recording out to everyone that signed up. So that's one of the benefits of signing up in advance. We're able to send that out to you as well. So again, when you have questions, feel free to just drop those in the chat and feel free to just introduce yourself when you come on in. We're just going to give everyone just another moment here to get logged in and then we'll get started. We have some folks that have some questions that they've sent in as well that weren't able to make it tonight. So we are very excited to dive into everything about Portugal. Again, my name is Colleen. I'm the founder and CEO of Portugal The Place. We are really excited to be here and to be able to answer these questions. Great to see you, Linda. Nice to have you here from Wisconsin. And we're going to be talking about everything to do with relocating, whether you're in the earliest stages or if you're already here and you have questions about the next step in your journey. We are really excited to be part of this and be able to answer your questions. So we are just at the top of the hour. We're at 6 o'clock. So we are definitely excited to dive in. Hi, everyone. And it looks like we've got folks here from Colorado as well. Welcome. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the chat and we'll dive right in and we'll get those answered for you as frequently as we can. We do have a couple of questions that had come in to me that people have asked us to get started with. So as I see people just start logging in and getting signed in, what we'll do is I'll jump on a couple of the questions that have been coming up. We're getting a lot of questions about moving your pets to Portugal, especially to do with the new passport gates, the new electronic gates in Portugal. There's some questions there that we're going to be diving into. And we also have a lot of questions, of course, about IMA and VFS and all the stages of your visa questions. So happy to be getting in there. So if you have any specifics, please feel free to throw them in there. Hello, everyone from all over, from Alabama to Los Angeles, from North Dakota. I feel like all these places, except maybe LA, are a bit colder than where I sit right now. I am in Portugal. I'm in Alcobaça, right in the center on the Silver Coast. So it looks like we've got some questions coming up. So we're going to jump right in. And so the first question here is, if I use your service, do you set up appointments with the Portuguese embassy? So we do not set up appointments. And it is the first step is going to be with VFS. It's the Portuguese consulate, the contracting company. It's usually VFS if you're in the United States, in most of the consulates. So depending on where you are, Bethany, if you are on the West Coast, it's San Francisco in the United States. If you're in the center on the East Coast, there's different ones. But that is a contractor. There are immigration attorneys that can dial to try to get an appointment for you. But in general, the most efficient way and the most successful way, unfortunately, is to just go and set a daily reminder and get in there and get those appointments for yourself. And remember, every person applying for a visa has to have an independent appointment. So it depends on the number in your family. All right. So another question that we have here is about moving the pets through the new electronic gates in Portugal. So recently they just installed the electronic gates that read the chip that's in your passport. And that's caused some confusion because some of the old documents say that you have to have an entry stamp to come into Portugal, and that would be given to you through the old style of going up and talking to someone, whereas the electronic gates just scan you through and you go through automatically. So what we're finding is people that are doing both ways are getting through and being approved by the vet and are progressing through the process with their paperwork. So if you have the anticipation that you're going to come into Lisbon and Porto, we haven't heard Faro yet, but Lisbon and Porto, if you're coming in there, it looks like you're okay to use the electronic gates and then take that paperwork to the vet, and then you'll be able to go through the process. Right now, it seems like it's working well. All right. So if you cannot get an appointment with VFS, it says that there are no appointments available. Yes, that's going to be the way it is until it isn't. Unfortunately, there are so many people looking for appointments that the constant requiring is basically the rule of thumb is to be trying to get appointments as early as possible in the time zone that you're looking. So if you can start early AM, like 6 a.m., or even late at night, like 1 a.m., in that kind of time frame, they are putting appointments back onto the rolls after midnight. And so if you're starting to look midday, if you're starting to look, especially with the time changes and the different time zones people are using, most likely those appointments will be gone. It is just a process of just being relentless and going through them. You can use an immigration firm and pay them to also be calling and dialing, but nobody has more ability than someone else to get the appointment. It's just the luck of the draw. You could pay someone to dial on your behalf, quote unquote dial, to go on and try to do an appointment, but you should be doing it at the same time because it's about a 50-50. Sometimes they snag it, sometimes you do, but in general, everybody's doing the exact same thing. All right. So as a U.S. veteran, do you have VA hospitals? Portugal does not have VA hospitals. The Veterans Administration hospitals are strictly a United States entity. Now, depending on your veteran status and where you are, if you have certain levels of recognized disability or something that needs to be done, there has been some veterans that have been able to use some of the services around the U.S. Embassy and with the services that are there for active personnel, but that's very limited. Most veterans are using an insurance, private insurance here and going through the private insurance process in Portugal. And VFS is the contractor. So that is a worldwide global contractor that handles the visa processes for consulates. So just for Portugal, for other countries, VFS Global is a contractor that does the paperwork and processing for your very first application, which is the visa that allows you to come to Portugal to apply for your residency. All right. So one of the next questions that we had sent in that they brought in over to us was talking about exactly what just came up. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. It gets confusing because when you're on Facebook and you're running through a lot of the social media sites, people kind of use terms interchangeably and it gets really confusing. But it's really important to understand the journey to get permission to live in Portugal. The very first thing you have to do to live in Portugal, to be able to legally reside here, is you're going to apply for a temporary visa permit. This is the earliest stage, and the temporary visa permit has to be done from your home country. So no matter what country you come from, there is going to be an option for you from that home country, and that's where you need to apply from. In that application, you're going to put together a series of documents that show that you meet the criteria for that visa. So, for example, there are two primary ones that most people are using. There's the D7. The D7 is the passive income visa. Retirees use this visa. People that have like rental income or annuities or something that they're earning, disability, things like that, that is all the passive income, and that comes under the D7. Then there is the D8, which is the digital nomad visa. This is where you can use your earned income and qualify to live in Portugal. There's a whole set of qualifications for each one. You have to gather all of that material, and then you go to the VFS Global site. In most cases, depending on where you are, there might be one or two exceptions, but in most cases, it's VFS Global. and you work to get an appointment. They're in-person appointments. You do go in person to your appointment. Everybody that's applying needs to go. And there you will submit all the paperwork. You have to have everything before you can go to that appointment. You submit everything, and then they will send it to the consulate, and the consulate will consider you for the first step, which is the temporary visa to allow you to move to Portugal legally. The next thing you will get is, if you are approved, you will get this visa put in your passport, and that will allow you to have 120 days to move to Portugal and to start living in Portugal. Once you have done that, your next step will be to get your residency. And this is where it gets really confusing. Your visa is the first step. That's the travel part. Your residency card is the internal piece that's in Portugal. And that's done through IMA, which is their border control immigration department. And that is where you will have the appointment in Portugal. You will take mostly the same documents along with some additional documents that you're going to verify. And then they will review them, do your biometrics, fingerprints, photos, and issue you your residency card, which for either the D7 or D8 is valid for 5 years with a renewal at 2 years. And then at 3 years, so a total of 5 years. So that's just a quick overview for those of you really early in the process. There's a lot of moving parts in there, but it's actually pretty straightforward. Visa's the very beginning, and residency is when you've actually gotten to Portugal. Can you give us a list of what is needed for IMA? Absolutely. So for your IMA appointment in Portugal, it is a duplication of all the documents that you brought for your visa appointment. And so the highlights of this, and we have this information on a link in our knowledge base. It's readily available on the VFS Global site. You can get the checklist. So it's very, very available. But the high list level is you're going to have proof of accommodation. That's either a 12-month legal and licensed lease that is registered in Portugal, that it is shown in the finance portal, and that you've paid for it. You're going to have to show your proof of income. You're going to have to show your bank is opened in Portugal with a funded bank account. You're going to have your NIF number, which is the number that you have that establishes you in the system in Portugal. It's like a tax ID number. And then you're going to have a background check from the FBI. You're going to have to submit a background check that's still valid, that you're going to have apostilled, which is like an international notary. And then there's some other small documents that you have to have, which you'll download off the site, the application itself, all of those things. And you will also have to have proof of travel insurance. This is a gap insurance that will cover you between the time you move to Portugal and when you get on the national health system. You take all of those documents from the first visa appointment in the US, you take all of those to your IMA appointment along with a residence certificate that says you came to Portugal physically and that you are actually residing. You file that once you arrive with the local city hall, the junta. And then you will have an additional document that is a recognized signatures of either your landlord saying, yes, you are physically living there, or if you have purchased a home, you have a document that you'll pull to show that. And then you'll have proof of private insurance that you'll bring to that appointment. So that's what you'll need for that second stage once you've gotten your visa and moved to Portugal. All right. So does Portugal tax USA state government pensions? Yes. So in Portugal, all of your income will be taxed. So all income, unless it is completely, tax-free, as far as like if it's a one-time lump sum from something that you can show that didn't have any taxation at all other earned income, pensions, things like that fall under the taxation in Portugal. Now, it's important to note two things. One, Portugal and the United States has a dual taxation treaty. I know that it offsets some, not all, depending on which item is taxed and which one is not. There's also tax deductions for the taxes that you pay in Portugal against your US taxes. And then they also have a progressive tax rate in Portugal. So depending on your amounts, it'll be taxed at different amounts. It's really important before you start the process of moving to Portugal, two things. One, make sure that you've done a realistic budget, because taxes are not apples to apples. Even though you may feel that you're paying higher taxes in Portugal, most people find such a significant offset with the healthcare, not having the health insurance premiums and all the things and the prescriptions, that you have to consider some of those back and forth exchanges. And then the other thing to do is talk with a financial planner and make sure that you have everything structured in the most progressive and protected way for being a international resident. And that's really for any place that you'd move, even beyond Portugal. Are there financial or economic requirements? Joseph, I think you must be referring to the visa. And yes, you have to have your proof of income and you have to show that you have savings. So your proof of income on the passive income visa, the D7 visa, is equivalent to the minimum wage in Portugal. So right now, that means you have to show 883 euros for the first person per month, and you have to have that verifiable with 3 months minimum of showing pay stubs when you apply. You also have equivalent to that for 1 year, which is going to be about, give or take, 12,000 euros in the bank minimum, but you will have obviously additional expenses such as your apartment, your utilities, things like that. So we advise that you have more in your bank account to cover those expenses, because you have to show that minimum amount when you apply and when you go to your IMA appointment. That's for the passive income. If you are applying for the digital nomad, you have, the only difference is the income requirement. For the first person, that's 3,200 euros per month with verifiable income, but the same amount for the amount in the bank. Yes, all income in Portugal is taxed. So Social Security, pensions, disability, earned income, annuities, anything like that will be taxed, but there are ways to offset that. And my suggestion is, if you're in the very early stages of considering moving to Portugal, we have so many retirees here on Social Security and on disability, pensions, things like that. And by working with a financial planner, they're able to structure it, and the offset of the health insurance differences and the costs of medical care and cost of living more than offset it. And so they're able to make it work. But each person is different. Each person's individual situation is different. So we really recommend that you start with a realistic budget and working with a financial planner for sure to make sure you're covered. All right, Monica, does that apply to the UK as well with the tax? No. So yes, Portugal taxes everyone's income, but they have different rules and different agreements with different countries. But Portugal does tax all income, but because of where your income comes from and the way it's structured, there are some different exceptions. So in general, you can depend on the fact that Portugal will tax your income, but you need to check with your financial advisor from your country and your situation to see what those rates are and if you qualify for any of the deductions. Do you know if it's possible to show up in person at the VFS Global location? They do not take walk-ins, so you cannot do that. All right, so April's asking, my husband is going to apply for the D8 visa. Myself and our dependent children are applying under his visa. Do we each need an appointment or just one for him? Each of you need an appointment, the children as well. So in this case, you and your children will be using all of his information for your individual visas, but each of you need a separate appointment, even the littlest ones. All right, I am at 90 days of waiting for my visa appointment. Should I be worried? Not at all, Kim. I wish I could tell you that it would go faster, but right now there is just such a demand for visas. And with all of that happening, it's just, we're seeing between 90 and 120 days being typical. We've had outliers beyond 120 days. The wait time doesn't indicate not being approved. Interestingly enough, most people that get denied most of the time are denied right away within like the 30 days, because they take a look at the initial paperwork, there's documents missing, there's something that doesn't qualify them, and then they make a request for more documents. And then usually you hear something quickly. The delay, the longer, and the delay is scary and frustrating, but it doesn't correlate to getting denied or approved. It just means that it's taking a while. At 120 days and after, then that's when it gets stressful. But right now, if you're at 90 days, it's totally appropriate to be sending them emails and asking for any updates. Suzette is asking, as an international resident, do you have to live in Portugal for a number of days each year? I have dependents who may be at school overseas. So yes, for the D7 visa and the D8 visa, it requires you to live in Portugal for 180 days of the year. That is a requirement for residency to be able to receive the benefits of the health system and to be able to live here. There is one visa that does allow an exception to that, but that is a purchase visa. That's called the Golden Visa, and that requires 500,000 euros of an investment to be able to have the option to receive your benefits of being able to live in Portugal without any demands on the amount of days. It only requires 7 days in country, but that is a pay-to-play type of visa that requires €500,000 to start, and it's about 25,000 euros to apply for. All right, I have an apartment in Oliveira de Hospital, Portugal. I have a NIF number, a bank account, water bill, phone bill, electric bill. Okay, that's a good start. That should get you going. You need, of course, to have your FBI report as well, and your insurance and all the additional documents. So you just need to keep working through VFS Global, and it will happen, but it does take some time. We see people that it takes 6 weeks, 2 months sometimes to get an appointment. Will our U.S. driver's license be okay in Portugal? Yes. So you will actually have a year to exchange your U.S. Driver's license for a Portuguese driver's license after you get residency. So the whole time you're waiting for your residency doesn't count. And then after you start you've gotten your residency card, you have 1 year to make that exchange. In the meantime, you can buy a car, you can get insurance, you can drive, no problem, on your U.S. driver's license. But after that 1 year, then you'll be expected to exchange your driver's license, but they don't make you take a test. If you follow the exchange process and you get a copy of a clean driver's record from the States, then it's pretty simple and you just make that exchange. I have private insurance in Portugal, and I know there is a time to wait for pre-existing conditions. What happens if I need care and I haven't received my SNS number? So it depends on the care. If the care is related to the pre-existing condition, then those terms would apply. But if it is additional care and you haven't received your SNS number, then your insurance should cover that. So for example, if you broke your leg, your private insurance would cover that. It would just be excluding the pre-existing condition that you're on a waiting time for. If you don't have your SNS number yet and it is something to do with the pre-existing condition, then you'd self-pay, and you'd be able to self-pay at the public system if necessary, and that is extraordinarily less expensive than what you would find if you had to self-pay in the States. It just depends on what you're dealing with. Monica's asking, with the 180 days, can you leave for a month? Then when does 180 days start again? No, you have to be really careful. I mean, some people play with this. You can get audited. So when you do your 2-year renewal, they will look at your in and outs on your passport. So you were supposed to be within Portugal for 180 days. So the idea is you should be not out longer. They really hope that you're not doing anything except taking vacation type trips, a couple weeks here, a weekend there, that kind of thing. If you start leaving for a month, your 180 days are definitely going to be affected because they're watching. The rule says 180 consecutive days, but they're fine with people going into the Schengen, to other countries, taking short trips. But if you start staying a month, 6 weeks out, you could be audited and it could affect your ability to renew at the end of that first 2 years or at the 3 years, depending on where you are in the process. When first moving to Portugal, can I apply to rent for an online, or should we move to a furnished short-term apartment and then go apartment shopping? You absolutely have to have. There is no way around this. You must get a rental in advance. It has to be a 12-month legal lease. So short-term Airbnbs where you don't have it in your name do not work. They're going to be looking for a registered lease where the landlord is paying taxes and that you are the legal renter of that property. So you can't have a third party in between. That's what like Airbnb or booking short terms are. So that's one of the things at Portugal The Place. That's one of the things we do is we help people virtually get that rental because it's complicated. You need to make sure that you've got it reviewed by a lawyer. You don't want to enter into something that you don't understand with a different legal process. So that's one of the services we offer, and make sure we've got your utilities hooked up and all of that. But regardless, you cannot come to a VFS appointment without a legal and licensed 12-month lease. So you will have to either come to Portugal and do the scouting in person, or you can do it virtually. And that's one of the services we offer, for example, either in person or virtual. So Vic is asking, is it relatively easy to find an apartment in Portugal remotely, or do you recommend at least one family member travel there in advance to find a place and sign a lease? Well, easy is one word to call it. We actually, that's what we specialize in, and we do it virtually for a lot of folks. I would say about 70% of people that decide to rent do it virtually with us. And it works very smoothly. We're Americans and Portuguese. We understand what people need. We understand the requirements. We make sure that you're not getting into a lease that's incorrect or that there's something wrong with the paperwork, and we're responsible for and make sure that it's been legally reviewed and is ready for your visa appointment. So as far as it just depends on how particular your family is on if you're comfortable with doing it virtual, but most people look at it as their first kind of landing spot. They're not necessarily looking for their forever home, and so the virtual works really well. All right, does private medical insurance have to be a Portuguese one, or can I use the English one? You must have private insurance that covers for all situations in Portugal. So if there is an English insurance company that you can show in the paperwork that they will cover for emergency care, in any one of the facilities, that it'll cover doctor visits, all of those different support pieces, then it could qualify, but it will have to specifically say it in the paperwork. It will have to say all of these things are covered in Portugal. If it doesn't say it specifically, and it's one of those things where it says, oh, you can send the receipts in and we'll reimburse you like 30%, 40%, that's not going to qualify. So most people end up getting their insurance in Portugal, but you could check. There are a couple of options here and there that can work. It just depends on your specific situation. All right. So, hey, Teresa, do I need to apply for residency visa if I am also a Polish citizen? No. Yay. If you are a Polish citizen with a Polish passport, you are in the EU and you are able to, that's one of the benefits that you have for being part of the EU. You just come and register that you are living in Portugal. So your situation, all this other visa conversation, all this, you don't have to worry about any of this. Just when you've gotten your place in Portugal and you know what you're doing, then you can just come in and you go to the junta, you register with your passport showing that you're an EU citizen, and that's it. So you're all set. And Kim is asking, when do you have to take the language exam? Is there any Portuguese apps or tutor programs that you recommend? So the language requirement doesn't come until the end of the 5th year. Right now, you have an option at the end to apply for permanent residency, which is for 10 years with a renewal every 10 years, or you have the option to start working towards citizenship. Both of those require the language at an A1, A2 level. And there is a lot of options for Portuguese. Now, I personally am using Practice Portuguese. That's the app that I'm using. It's European Portuguese. It was designed by a Portuguese and American couple that put it together, and I find that it's very applicable to living in Portugal. They do a really good job of giving you realistic audio to listen to and really giving you great notes to kind of go back and refer to. So it's called Practice Portugal. It has a free Practice Portuguese. It has a free version and then a pro version, and the pro has been great. I really can't recommend it enough. It's been great. And then when it comes to taking the classes, there are tons. Liz Sharma is fantastic. She has an online class. She's all over social media. She's got a great style, and a lot of our clients have really thrived with her. So she's one that you can get up and running, but she doesn't teach to the exam. So there's two things you have to understand. You can learn Portuguese and then go and take the exam. That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to have to go and sit for a language exam because I don't have the time to take the classes that you can take, which will allow you to get a certificate showing you fulfilled your language. So there's two tracks. You either get a tutor and then you go take the exam, or you can go to one of the state-sanctioned classes or private classes that they have here in Portugal, where you will do a 9-week intensive course where it's 5 days a week from 9 to 1 or in the evening. And you can't miss any of those classes. But if you complete the whole entire course and you've attended everything, there's no test and you'll get the certification showing that you did the A1, A2 requirements. So there are two ways to do it. But if you want to get a jump before you move, I would really recommend Liz Sharma. She's fantastic. And the Practice Portuguese app. It's one with the rooster. If you look it up on your store, it's got this cute little rooster on its picture. It's fantastic. Oh, hey, Tony. Oh my gosh. Hey, Merry Christmas. Tony's one of my longest friends from back in Oregon. Now that is a face to see. I have missed you. That was a surprise. Merry Christmas to all of you. All right. Kendra, do all the utilities of the rented apartment need to be in the renter's name? My apartment used to be an AL for years, and all the utilities are in the owner's name. Not necessarily, but we have to show a document that says the reason that all of the utilities are in the owner's name. And then it is good if you can show like a phone contract for your phone, something like that for your SIM card that is in your name. Just, it's another piece of the puzzle. They're going to want proof that you really are living in Portugal. They've had so many people breaking the rules. They've had so many people that have been cutting the line that they're cracking down on that, and they're really looking for verification. So document why the utilities aren't in your name, and then make sure you have something like your SIM card phone service, something like that, that has your name, just to show that you're in Portugal. Do you travel to anywhere in Portugal to show people accommodation? Yes, we travel everywhere. We have a team of 20 on our team, and we have experts in all the different regions. So from the Algarve to the far north and everywhere in between, we cover it all. We just don't do the islands. So we don't do Azores or Madeira, but we do everything else. And we are happy to go. We have gone to some wild places, I can tell you for sure. And what is the average cost for a 1-bedroom? That's a really tough question because it does completely depends on where you are. Lisbon is one of the most expensive European capitals, and it's a major city, and the cost of living is reflected in those prices for being such a popular destination. But if you're in a quiet place like in the Alentejo, you can find a very affordable cost. But a rule of thumb is you're not going to come in anything that most Americans are looking for. And what I mean is there is kind of a Portuguese type of a rental, maybe one without heat. It could be in an older building. It doesn't have an elevator. It may be with single paned windows, not as updated as what we're accustomed to, most likely. And those might come in for $500 a month, depending on location. And again, that would be a remote location, a small town, something like that. But if you're in a larger community, if you're in a city like Lisboa, you could have a 1-bedroom that could be anywhere from 900 to 2,000 a month, depending on where it is. But you should plan for a 1-bedroom between 800 and 1,200 a month, just depending on where you are in Portugal. All right. Yeah, that is true. Pimister is another good app to learn Portuguese. That's one that some folks have used. So there's lots of good apps out there for sure. All right, so 800, there you go, and that is Coimbra. So that's a lesser expensive market than Lisbon for sure. All right, what are all your services and associated fees? So we have 3 core services that we offer, and it depends on where you are in the stages of moving. We do location immersion scouting, and so that's the earliest stage for people that have never been to Portugal, or maybe you've only been on vacation and you haven't had a chance to look at an area from the lens of, could I live here? And that's what we are not tour guides going to wineries and castles and things. Of course, we love to show why Portugal is so fabulous, but our goal goal is to show you the good, the bad. Every area has pros and cons, and make sure you understand what that community could offer you. For example, Coimbra is a fantastic community. It has the university hospital, it has a university, it's vibrant, international food. It's got a great outdoor lifestyle. The river is there. But for some, it could be difficult depending on where you land in Coimbra if you have maybe perhaps some issues with walkability. Coimbra also is inland, so if you're looking for something coastal, it's a little bit farther removed from the coast. We're going to talk pros and cons through all the different areas and then contrast them and show you the differences between different regions so that you have something really to work with as you're considering where you'd land in Portugal. So that's one service, and it depends on how many days you choose to go with us. We do a 3-day minimum, where you're going, how many people. There's a lot of combinations there on that. And all you need to do is book a free call, and we'll walk you through all of it based on your situation and circumstance, all of that. Then our other services are our relocation packages. These are designed for people that have already decided to move to Portugal, and now they're looking at actually physically moving to Portugal. So we do everything from getting your bank account set up to virtually finding that rental. Like we discussed, we can do it virtually or in person, depending on the package you choose. We hook up all of the utilities. We help you navigate your phone service. We help you with your internet service. We get you set up with everything you need to be prepared to make sure you've got all that paperwork for those appointments that you will have for the visa. We also help you navigate all the rest of it. We have our insurance broker partners. We can help translate all your documents. We can make sure that if you want to buy a car, we have car partners. We have pet relocation support. All of these different pieces of the puzzle, we are there in our entirety for you. If you've got children in school, if you have health concerns, all of those things are in our packages, and that can be for the rental and or if you do purchase, if you're looking to purchase your home. We're not real estate agents. We work for you on your behalf, and we vet and are experienced with the real estate market here and really help you understand how to navigate it, get into all the details, make sure that you're connected with home inspections, mortgages, all the different things you may have on your mind, all that same support service and beyond. We have the Ajuda service, which means help, which you can go for a year after you've arrived, where we do translation, make appointments, help you find plumbers and solar and landscapers and all those things you're going to need to settle in. So our packages depend on what you're doing. And again, the best way to get details is so that we can give you what fits for your lifestyle. And you just schedule a call at our website, and we're happy to help you answer all of those questions. All right, what is the diversification like? Can I live safely and comfortably in a more traditional setting, small town, good schools, and not have to worry about discrimination? Well, that's a great question, and that's one of the reasons we initially decided to relocate to Portugal. Our family is a diverse family from a variety of backgrounds, and we were struggling with that back in the United States. And we live in a small town of 25,000 people, and I can honestly say, and my daughter is right here, she's working the other side of this. She's managing the webinar and social media, that she has been living here now for 4 years and has received 0 issues with discrimination. She's African American and Korean and lives here in a way that was never possible in the US. The small town, the only places I would say that might be uncomfortable, and I wouldn't say it would go full discrimination, it's more like just because you're a foreigner and not speaking Portuguese. When you get into the center, like deep Alentejo, far over on the east, when you're almost on the Spanish border, these towns are just so small and so isolated that sometimes like I'll walk into one of those towns and like the windows will open and you can see the ladies all looking and they hear you talking and they're like, oh, who's in town, that kind of thing. So you do stick out. I mean, it's definitely assimilation is a thing because as a non-Portuguese speaker and not knowing all the customs, that does take some adjustment. But it's been an incredible experience for us personally. We can speak to that, in firsthand. And our clients have not had any issues coming back to us. And we have people from all walks of life, from the LGBTQ community, from the African American community, our Latino community. Everyone that's been here has been finding their way in the large cities and in the small towns equally, and have been pleasantly and happily settling in. All right, Kendra would say, I would like to keep my US phone number due to MFA with accounts. Should I start the process to keep my number while in America or wait until I arrive in Portugal? I've read about Telio and considering an eSIM. So most people figure this out about 30 days before they relocate. You don't want to have to pay for it or get confusing before that. Excuse me, but both Tilio and the eSIM are options. It depends on really how much you anticipate having to use that American number. And most people start transitioning off of it after a period of time and being in Portugal. The eSIMs depend on the phone. It depends on how well your phone is going to be able to take dual SIMs, things like that. But for a lot of folks, Tilio, parking your phone and doing that has worked well. But really about 30 days before, 30 to 45 days before is when people start digging in and getting their phones set up. But the eSIM piece is very simple now with just getting that and getting it established before you arrive. And just as you know, having the eSIM and having your phone number in Portugal before you get here really makes it easier for logging into things, because a lot of times you need to use your phone number to verify. So that'll be good to have. Do you have any idea on the waiting timeline for a D7 visa? I live in Texas and not sure which consulate would work on mine, but I've heard Florida and San Francisco are 3 to 4 months out. So you also have Houston. So Houston is also, you're not going to have San Francisco, you'll have Houston and or Washington, D.C. So right now, there's two different things you're asking for. If you're asking for an appointment for the visa, they are running 2 to 3 months out. If you are asking for the wait time after you've applied, it's 90 to 120 days. So there is definitely, we have people, what we really do is say you want to set kind of your target date of living in Portugal and work 8 months backwards from that. And that's how you kind of get your timeline and accommodate those waits for those different stages. All right, so Kim has an account with Novo Banco. I don't understand how beneficiaries work in Portugal. Did that need to be set up when I opened my account? Worried if something happened that my family has access to my funds. So it doesn't have to be set up. Kim, if you are in Portugal, you can go in and set up your beneficiary, but the best thing you can do is work with, there's one really important thing for all of us moving from another country. In Portugal, your will and your wishes from your country will not be recognized in Portugal unless it's established in a Portuguese will. And it's really important, even if you don't have a lot of assets, because what it'll do is if it doesn't have a Portuguese will, then it will automatically go to probate. And that means if the worst happened and your American family was trying to figure out how to navigate everything in Portugal, it would be locked up in just all kinds of legal challenges and make it very complicated for your family. But if you do a simple Portuguese will, and you state clearly who your beneficiaries are, what your assets are, who has access to what, and then take that to the bank, all of those things would be then covered, and you would have that filed in the finance. They would have that. So if something happened, then your family would immediately have access and be able to get through all the process relatively smoothly. And the other thing just to note on that subject is if you have an advance directive, if you have a living will, they are not recognized in Portugal. You need to take that and have it refiled through an attorney here, and they have to be redone in Portugal every 5 years. So very important if that's something you want to have, that you make sure you plan on doing that when you get here. All right. Our contact information is going to be boosted up here right on the bottom of the webinar, but it is portugaltheplace.com. So you can go right on our website. And portugaltheplace.com has two different ways you can reach out. You can just book a call. You can just go right there and click on book a call, or you can go to our contact us form. And if you have some specific questions, that is an email that will come into the team and we can answer those questions for you. But it's all right there on portugaltheplace.com. And you can also reach us on all the social media channels through Portugal The Place. So we're kind of everywhere, but the website's a good place to start for sure. All right, and then let's see, we have a couple of more questions that are popping up right here. So one of the questions that we have that are coming through, we also have some social media questions that are coming over, is they're talking about what we need to do to prepare for the schools. We have a couple of people that are asking about school-aged children. And it's really important to start as early as possible because if you recall from my earlier conversation, we have an 8-month time frame that we need to account for. So you really want to consider that when looking at moving with children, because if you're considering moving and getting them into the next school year, believe it or not, we're right at that time. I mean, if you think about that, how close we are to the summer already when you're looking at months. I know it's Christmas time and the holidays, but folks that are looking to try to have their kids ready to go to school by the new school year in September right now are getting their visa appointments, finding their accommodation, making sure they have their kids enrolled in school, going through all of that process, especially if you want to put your children in an international school. Those schools have waiting lists and interviews and time, so you really need to start that process earlier if that's something that you're considering. So please make sure if you've got children involved that you give yourself a little extra time to organize and get prepared for all of that. So it looks like we had multiple questions with the children. One of the other questions that we've got that are coming through is that they're also asking what's the difference between international schools, private schools, and public schools. And basically a public school is what it is. It's a Portuguese public school. It'll be taught in Portuguese, and many of the public schools now, depending on the location, have Portuguese as a second language, support tutors, but everything will be taught in Portuguese. Private schools, many of the private schools, depending on Porto, Coimbra, even the Silver Coast, out in the Lisbon area, the Algarve area for sure, will have curriculum that's taught in English, but it will still be a Portuguese course of study. And then you have the international schools, which will either be British or American here in Portugal. And these will be following the tracks of the school curriculum in the country that they are based out of. And they will be taught in English. And then you will have a host of children attending from all backgrounds, including Portuguese, but also all over the world that will be coming there. And that curriculum will be very focused on if it was either British or American, whichever is sponsoring that international school. The costs definitely reflect that. The international schools being the most expensive, and then the public schools usually are free or very little cost, depending on what it is that they're doing. So I hope that answers all of you guys. So that is definitely one of the questions. Thoughts on Tavira for expats? Well, for me, for the Algarve, if I was going to live in the Algarve, I have two favorite cities, and Tavira is one of them. So if I was going to live on the east side of the Algarve, closer to the Spanish border, I love Tavira. Tavira is graceful. It has a Portuguese charm. It's very walkable, and it's just got a great quality of life. Now, the downside for Tavira is, unlike the west side, which has the dramatic cliffs, you know, it's what everyone thinks of as the Algarve with all those beautiful sandstone cliffs and the water. The east side, it gets pretty flat. It's more estuary, and the rivers going out into the ocean, and the beaches are pretty distant from the city. So it's more quieter. It's a little bit more chill way of life. It doesn't have that same kind of feeling that the west side has when it comes to the beaches specifically. But for the rest of the quality of life, for the activities, for the amenities, the hospitals, all those kind of things, it's very well located. For some people, they love Tavira because they can be in Sevilla in Spain at the Costco in an hour and 20 minutes, and that's important to people. So that is a really good thing. And if you're looking at the west side, I mean, I'm just a huge fan of Faro and going farther east and then going into Lagos, west. Lagos is just fantastic. So it's just a beautiful area, and there's a lot of great communities right around it. So the Algarve offers a lot of choices, and you don't always have to be in Gulf communities. There's a lot of options that will allow you to kind of still get some of that Portuguese feel. What is the name of the small town you mentioned where you are? I'd like to research more on that because I'm looking for a small town feel. Absolutely, Sheila. We're in Alcobaça. So we are just minutes inland from Nazaré on the Silver Coast. So if you look on a map and you look at Nazaré and then you just go due east, we're about 7 minutes from Nazaré in a town called Alcobaça, and we're famous for a UNESCO World Heritage Site for this beautiful monastery that's here, and we just love it. But if you want to know more about the area, Sheila, feel free to schedule a call. That's one of the things we do as well, is we love to compare and contrast. There are so many fantastic communities in this country, and there really is, I mean, it's cliche with our name, there is a place in Portugal for everyone. Do we use Amazon Spain, and do they deliver like they do in the USA? So yes, you use Amazon Spain, and no, they don't deliver like they do in the US. It definitely takes more days to get things, which I guess is good. You don't do as much impulse buying. And the other thing to note is that they don't have, if you live in an apartment, you need to really work out your delivery because they won't leave the package. You'll have to look at the PIN and the information they send you and go get it from the pickup location because they won't just leave it at your door or in the front in most cases, especially apartments. Have you had any clients who have used, I'm sorry, my eyes. No, is that Clontarra? Sorry, Clonara school for their school-age children. Was it accepted as proof of enrollment on their visa application? Okay, I have not had anyone that I know of use that particular school, so that is new information for me. But for their visa application, you don't have you don't necessarily have to have their proof of enrollment in that detail. They're going to be looking for most of the same information, mostly with children. They're going to be looking for a relationship, that you have the right to move them out of your home country. And then they're going to be, it depends on the time of year. You may move and not have your child enrolled yet. So that's not necessarily going to be a requirement, but I don't have any information on that particular school group. How is Braga? Braga's great. Braga is a good sized city. It has everything that you need for living, especially if you want to live car free. Braga is more affordable than perhaps like Lisboa and Porto, for example. It has great train connections and it's just got a beautiful center. But Braga is hot in the summer. I don't think I've been hotter anywhere in Portugal than when I was spending time in Braga in August. So just something to know, that just because of the way it sits in this kind of valley, it can get really, really hot in August and feel a little bit colder at this time of year. But it is a beautiful city, absolutely beautiful, and a great place to be. All right, we're getting through these questions. And what is Alvor like for expats? It's funny because that's where we're going for our holiday break. We're going to go down to Alvor because we have a relative that lives down there, and that's where we're headed for after Christmas. And it's great. It's the first town that Clyde, my husband, and I, when we got here, the first town we went to in the Algarve to visit. And what I love about Alvor is it's got this like fishing vibe, you know, it's got the harbor and the little fishing boats. It doesn't have as many of the big tall skyscrapers. You can still see Portimão just down the way with all of its tall buildings, but Alvor has this really chill feel. Now, it gets packed in the summer. There is no place in the Algarve that is not just wall-to-wall humans from about July to September, but Alvor is charming and it's got a great quality of life. All right, so we are just moving through. I think we've gotten to almost all of our questions. I can't believe we're just kind of running around the cycle and coming to the end of this for this year for me. I do want to just thank you, everyone, for reaching out and being part of this community of conversations. I think it's really helpful to be able to just go through all of this because it is a process, and I know it can feel overwhelming. You're not alone out there. There's a lot of us that have done it, are doing it, and definitely want to help support you as you go through it. If you'd like to talk to our team, you'd like to talk to us, just jump on our website and schedule a call. Just feel free to reach out. It doesn't matter what part of the process you're in. That's what we're here for. And we will have a real conversation with you because there's no point in trying to make everything feel like it's perfect when you move to Portugal. The thing is just like anywhere, it's got fantastic points and then it has some challenges and you need to be prepared. So we really look forward to helping you navigate all of this. For all of you that are already working with us, we are so excited to be part of your journey. And again, we're going to have a whole new schedule of these in 2026. I can't believe we're saying that. And I'm wishing all of you just the best and most peaceful and wonderful holiday season to all of you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next year.